Welcome to the Discount Property Investor Podcast, where we show you how to buy real estate at a discount so you can create wealth over time and income today. Our mission is to share what we have learned from the experience of others and help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate, the Discount Property Investor way. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, guys, welcome back. The Discount Property Investor Podcast. We're happy to be with you here today. My name is David Dodge. I'm one of your hosts. Also sitting with Mr. Mike Slane.
Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Co-host. Mike, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing pretty good. We're just. I'm really excited to be talking about what we're talking about today. We're talking about.
I'm really excited just to talk.
That's a true story, isn't it? I guess at home you're not allowed to that much. I don't know. You get shut down by the wife or whatever it is.
That's right.
What
are we talking about today, man?
Well, we're going to talk about basically business structure.
Structure.
And this is something I feel like we are still in the thick of a company, which is why I'm excited to talk about it. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Let's do a little bit of the housekeeping first. If it's your first time joining us, we'd encourage you guys to go check out the first 10 episodes. There you're going to learn the most about how to get started in wholesaling. Mm-hmm. It's really the outline to get started.
Yeah.
We put together a whole free course on it at freewholesalecourse.com. There, like we said, you can get all the documents and everything you're going to need to get started in wholesaling.
It's a full-blown course, guys.
Yeah, so go check that out first. And then, let's dive into the topic today. So we titled the episode Like a Boss.
Like a boss.
Because we're talking about business structure. And Dave and I, some days I feel like the boss day, or some days I feel like a boss. Some days I feel like I'm lost.
I feel like I'm lost all the time, but I try to be a boss.
Yeah. So let's talk about your business. We'll talk about when you're getting started in real estate, when do you go full time? Mm-hmm. And from my personal experience, I probably would not follow what I did because I literally just quit my job and said, screw it, I got money, I'm done. I'm just going to go learn to wholesale real estate.
You had saved up a little bit of cash to be able to cover your bills for a few months.
Honestly, I would not recommend that.
Okay. Why not?
What I would recommend
Why
is...
not, though, Mike? I just want to ask.
Okay. So the main reason is I believe that losing that W-2 income prior to buying the 10 or 15 rentals slowed me down, I'd say, several years.
Yeah.
If I would have kept the job and learned to wholesale on the weekends and then applied for loans and used that money to leverage out the money,
W-2 income helps tremendously.
Right. I'd be several years further ahead in my investing career.
Right.
So again,
I get it.
I mean, again, it's not a huge deal, but I think it's very important because you're not bankable. So until you prove that your company is making money, banks don't want to loan to you.
Yeah.
So I would
they're just not interested in loaning.
They aren't interested in loaning. So I would recommend keeping it until you can show that your side hustle is profitable and maybe making at least as much as your day job for at least 2 years tax returns.
2 years tax returns.
And then I would make the jump to full time because you're still probably bankable at that point.
Right.
So that would be my recommendation for most guys.
Yeah.
So Dave, I don't know. What do you think? I mean,
when should you go full time? You brought up a really good point that I don't even think that I had considered. At least recently. So that's a great point. However, Jimmy in one of our recent episodes, he talks a lot about your strike price, and then that's just kind of I don't really know if I like that terminology, but essentially I like to call it your freedom number. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, strike price, freedom number. But essentially what that means is how much money do you need to live off of, okay? And we're not talking about being able to take vacations and live above your means, but what are your means? Your mortgage, your car payment, your insurance, food, small entertainment budget, so on and so forth. How much money do you need to live? Is that number $2,000? Is it $3,500? Is it $5,000? What's your number? And once you can get to a point in any, not even wholesaling, but any business that is generating that amount of money, that to me is when you should go full time, because you essentially have created a freedom. You've created financial freedom in terms of either passive income or generating income via your business.
So, and I shared that thought, and I shared that thought when I quit my job,
right?
Because that's what I did. I basically paid off a lot of my debt.
You had a lot,
and
of
I
debt
had
a
little bit of income coming in, and I was a bachelor, so my freedom number was low.
It was low.
You know, I mean, $1,000 a month, and I could live off of it. So
right.
I mean, it's literally, I mean, a couple rental properties, guys. It's no big deal.
Right.
But again, like I said,
a very good point though, Mike.
Like I said, had I to do it over again, I would have kept the job. I would have just muttered through it and done it part time. Maybe it would have taken me a full year before I even learned to wholesale more successfully.
Right.
But again, it's that hindsight's 2020. So my recommendation, guys, is maybe hang on to that day job or cut it back to part time, because that W-2 income is an asset that you may not realize.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. The only downside, though, to not jumping in full time, guys, is it's going to take you a lot longer to become a pro and become an expert at it, and it can be discouraging. So there's definitely that fine line where you need to balance. You know, I always say consistent, persistent action. If you have consistent, persistent action in anything that you do, you're gonna be successful. But you can't give up on it. You know, by jumping in full time, and I did the same thing, Mike. Mm-hmm. We both jumped in. It took us several months to do our first deal, both of us, because we were learning. We didn't know what to do. We were buying courses.
How long did it take you?
Analysis paralysis, at least 3 months.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah.
Maybe
you're bringing the average down. I'm bringing it up. It's all good.
Yeah. Maybe 3.5.
Sure.
But I hired a coach, and within hiring that coach, within 2 or 2.5 weeks of hiring that coach, I did a deal, and I did another deal the next week, and I did another deal the next week, and I've done a deal every week since then. So hiring a coach is definitely super important.
Let's get back on topic a little.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
I'm really excited to talk about
yeah, totally.
Business structure and kind of how we have our company set up. I'd love to share some of that
let's
with
talk
the
about
listeners.
It. Yeah, absolutely.
And then some different topics.
So when to go full time? We've kind of covered that. Taxes are a big part of business structure, guys. If you're not aware of this, I'd like to make you aware of this, but the single largest expense in your life is taxes, like it or not, and that's for every single human on the planet.
That's not true. Mine is my wife.
Oh, that's funny.
Just kidding, Katie. I love you.
That's funny. No, but honestly though, guys, taxes are the biggest expense that you will pay, and you may or may not know that. But look at your paychecks. If you're a W-2 employee, look at how much money is taken out of your check every month without your control.
Yeah, and then you get a refund at the end of the year, which is some of that money back. But that doesn't
quite even a portion.
God, it's been a long time since I've looked at it because it just drives me crazy. But it's like your actual tax rate is like 50%. When you look at your sales tax on any purchase,
of your taxes,
all
guys.
of your taxes
it's
combined.
not just the taxes that come out of your paycheck.
Right.
There's a ton of taxes. You have taxes. You have
so there's income tax.
Income tax.
Then your sales tax.
Sales tax.
Personal property tax.
Personal property tax.
Real estate tax.
Real estate tax. Inflation, which is hidden tax.
Hidden taxes, yeah. Reading the Jekyll or the creature from Jekyll Island, I assume.
I am. Mm-hmm. Sure am.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially your effective tax rate.
That's what it was.
When you consider all things considered, it's almost half, if not quite.
Yeah, I can't remember.
If not half.
Is that what it is? It's like 50%.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You go to the store and you buy a coffee. And coffee is $1. You don't pay $1. You pay $1.07. Mm-hmm. You pay 7 cents on top of that $1.
Yeah, and then what's the one on
to buy that coffee? That's 7 cents that you don't get back. And not only did you pay $1.07, but you had to earn $1.50 to get the $1.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Well, then, so think about the coffee person too. That business, they had to pay taxes on all their stuff, so they have to mark that into their
taxes,
their costs.
I mean, it's half, guys.
It is.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
But
and excise tax. I was talking about alcohol and tobacco.
Excise tax. Yep.
They just sneak them in, and gas,
fuel tax,
and fuel. Yeah.
Right.
They sneak it in there.
There's taxes on everything. It's crazy. It's crazy.
We love taxes.
But one of the advantages of real estate, guys, is and or are taxes.
Well, it's one
Did
of the.
I say that right? Did I confuse you? I was trying to confuse you.
It's close enough. We'll just move on. So that's the other advantage to owning a business too, is that there are ways to.
That's true. Business ownership and real estate, two great tax shelters, tax avoidances, tax benefits.
Right. There's ways to minimize your taxes. So we are not experts on that.
We are not.
And every state is different.
So
don't necessarily want to get too in depth on that, other than consult with a CPA. I think that's the best
and just
thing.
be aware that taxes are your biggest expense. If you aren't aware of it, now you are. You know, it's crazy. But yes, as Mike said, we're not, tax or financial planners or advisors. Consult with your CPA. But one of the best business advantages, or one of the best advantages of being a business owner, especially one that deals with real estate, is that you can cut your effective tax rate in half, if not down into a third or even a quarter of what you would typically pay, with your 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, it's super important. So that said, I lost my train of thought. Taxes, you don't want to pay them. You want to pay them within the confines of the law.
Yeah, but you want to avoid paying.
You want to pay as little as possible.
So here's just a quick quote. I know we're kind of expanding on this, but I'm going to just sum it up real quick. But the tax law, essentially is tens of thousands of pages, guys. It's actually pretty crazy how much law there is in regards to taxes. But here's the point of this, though. Only between 1% and 2% of all the tax law tells you when and how much and where you have to pay your taxes to. The other 98 to 99% are ways to avoid taxes. Did you know that, Mike?
I did.
It's pretty amazing. So by having a good CPA, and again, we're not telling people to break the law and not pay your taxes. That's not the point here. But the point is that if you know what you're doing with business and with taxes, and especially with real estate, there are legal ways to avoid paying taxes, reduce your tax liability, and essentially, if you have real estate and you pass away and you leave that to heirs, they don't have to pay any taxes on it. So there are ways to essentially legally avoid taxes completely.
So it resets the
basis steps up.
Yeah. So it is essentially not paying taxes, but
you're avoiding it.
Yeah. It's a great strategy.
Moving on. Taxes are
let's talk about structuring the business, though.
Right.
So again, taxes are a huge part of it because it makes something that's not necessarily super profitable because you're not paying,
vice versa.
Right.
right.
Exactly.
Right.
So get a CPA to help you set it up and continue educating yourself on it as well, and be aware of all the benefits that are out there for somebody who is investing in real estate.
Right.
So that's another reason why we love rentals.
You're gonna spend money on your CPA, guys. Spoiler alert: you're gonna spend money on your CPA. I think last year I maybe paid my CPA between $4,000 and $5,000, but you know what though? She probably saved me $20,000, if not $30,000.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about.
So it's like you're gonna spend a little bit of money on these people, but at the end of the day, you're getting that back 5 times. So don't be afraid to go sit down with a CPA, especially if you are a business owner or a real estate owner. And just one more thing about this. If you are a real estate investor, find a CPA who's a real estate investor. Because again, there's 10,000 pages of tax code. And if they're a real estate investor, you can be pretty damn sure that they're going to really study those particular pages and find all the loopholes that they can to avoid those taxes.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about our business then.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Our business, how we're structured.
Yeah.
We don't want to give too much information away, but we want to give
our EIN number is.
So basically, we're an LLC, and then we've elected to be taxed as, I think, an S corp.
Right.
Again, through the guidance of our CPA,
Sure.
and we encourage you to do the same.
But there are different types of corps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not familiar with all of them, and I don't even know which one's right. What I wanted to talk about with ours, though, is Dave said he paid his tax person significant amount of money. We actually have an in-house bookkeeper at this point, part-time. But we've got somebody who does all that stuff for us because, quite frankly, we don't want to be dealing with entering in stuff to QuickBooks or learning QuickBooks for that matter.
Right.
I don't want to do that, so we have a bookkeeper. Let's talk a little bit about the rest of our team, kind of how we've built it and how we've structured it. Dave and I and the other 2 partners, so there's 4 partners in our operation. You met them in episode 1. We came together and we said, we're all pretty much equals. We're going to go do some wholesaling, and that's really how it started.
Right.
What we've added to that dynamic since then is first we added 1 virtual assistant. So somebody out in the Philippines answers all of our phone calls for us, our incoming phone calls for us, and then books appointments for us. Our next, I guess, hire, you could say, was somebody here locally, an office assistant and our closing coordinator. That was our next step.
Yeah, essentially she was an office assistant to start, and she morphed into being, or I shouldn't say assistant, office manager, and then she morphed into being our closing coordinator, and she's been doing a fabulous job with it. And
well, it was a full-time job, and we weren't treating it like it. And again, we needed somebody that could, hey, what do we have closing today? How much money do we need? Just all that stuff.
Yeah, just talking with the buyers and the sellers, because Mike and myself and other partners, we're busy working on the business as well as in the business, and we're running appointments. It's hard for us to run those appointments, as well as, follow up with the seller or the buyer on a deal and make sure that they're going to be at the closing table.
Yeah, so how's that look for us?
It's a full-time job, keep coordinating closings.
And how that looks for us then, once we have the contract in place with the seller, we basically hand it off to the closing coordinator, who then calls them and introduces herself and says, hey, I'm taking over from here on out. I can be your liaison between the title company until we get it closed.
Right.
And
she also helps on marketing to sell to sell the deal to buyers too. So she actually wears quite a few hats, but she's doing a really good job with it. Very, very impressed with her.
Yeah. So then our next kind of addition to the team, and this is congruent as well, was we've got what we call junior buyers or JV buyers. So we have a lot of leads coming in, and we work as many appointments as we can, but then we also send out other people. We send them leads and say, hey, if you get this under contract, we'll partner with you on
back to the JV. We're often busy running appointments, and sometimes we have more leads that come in that we can handle. And so like Mike said, we have people in the field that will essentially go out and meet those people for us. They'll determine the ARV. They'll help negotiate those deals.
They do a lot of it.
They do all of it. Yeah. Essentially, they'll bring us a contract. And then from there, we'll start marketing that property. And if we're able to wholesale it or maybe we buy it, either way, we pay them. A commission is the wrong word because for the legality.
We have a joint venture.
The legality purposes. Yeah. We have a joint venture agreement, and we'll essentially pay them a marketing fee or a finder's fee. And they invoice us, and we pay them. So it's a win-win.
So again, that team was it's constantly being built because people kind of come in and
it's constantly
go.
Growing.
It's basically it's like a sales job. I mean, that's what wholesaling essentially is, a sales job. You eat what you kill.
Right.
So a lot of people come and go, and we help train people, and they're our partners essentially. And next step, I guess we added a second VA. Right.
We've added a third VA recently, but the next step, we added a second VA. So our first virtual assistant, he's a rock star. We love him. He's been with us for, I guess, 2 years now, or with me for 2 years, and the company for probably about 1.5 or so. But he's a rock star. He essentially handles all of the inbound motivated seller calls and leads. So we've actually taken it one step further. In all of our direct mail, it doesn't say call Dave or call Mike. It says call Dennis. Dennis is our point of contact. When this number right here rings Dennis's phone, okay?
Please don't call him.
Yeah, if you're looking on YouTube, you're not going to be able to see this on audio, but if you're looking, so that's our main company.
Yeah, he's busy, man. He's a hustler.
Busy. He's a hustler. Yeah. But essentially, Mike and I don't answer the phones at this point because we've built a business. So if you're new to the business, answer the phone. We've said this before many, many, many times. But
and that can be in many different capacities, though. So answer the phone to us now means we have
somebody to answer the phone. Right.
We have an answering service 24 hours a day, though. So when Dennis is
somebody's answering the phone.
The phones get answered.
Right.
It's very important.
Yeah, but he takes all of the inbound calls, and then in his free time, he essentially is following up. Because again, guys, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. The money is in the follow-up. So when the motivated seller calls in and they say, hey, I got this property, but, it's worth 60 and I owe 58 on it. Well, that's not a deal, guys. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that that's not a deal. But, maybe that seller's willing to come to the table with some cash just to get rid of it. and they're not willing to do it today, but in 9 months from now or 9 weeks from now, they are. So you got to continue to follow up. So he is essentially dealing with the sellers and the follow-ups.
Right. So then our second
VA,
we hired with the intent to help with a lot of office stuff, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we eventually split him off, and now he answers all of our buyers calls.
Buyer side calls.
And
so he's in charge of marketing the deals amongst our closing coordinator. They both kind of work that together. But he posts those properties to Craigslist like every single day, because I get the emails every day. He does a great job, and he's becoming a rock star himself. He posts these properties to Facebook for us. He posts them to local websites. There's a couple local websites in St. Louis that investors will allow you to post properties to.
He actually edits our podcast for us, too.
He edits the podcast for us, too.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. Daniel's killing it. But also, the most important thing that he does is, we have 2 different phone numbers. We have a phone number for the motivated sellers, and then we have a phone number that we use to market the properties to our cash buyers or our buyers. And when those buyers are interested in a new property that we have, they call a different number that he answers, and essentially he goes into our system and he looks up the property. He tells, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Cash Buyer, this property is still available. We're asking this price for it. However, it's always negotiable. So make us an offer. And would you like to see the property? Great. We have a lockbox on it. All I need from you is your name, your number, and your email address, or whatever information he can capture from them. And then he gives them the lockbox.
Right.
code.
If they're not in our system already, if they're already in, then he just
most of them will be.
And he logs it into our system. Who's interested in the property?
One thing I do want to mention is by logging in everybody that either calls in or emails about a property is super, super important, guys, because if you do a price drop, so let's say you have a property, doesn't even matter what you paid for it or what you're asking for, but let's say you have a $12,000 markup on it, and you're marketing it for a week or two, and you don't have any offers, and you have very low interest. Let's say a couple people had called, but you're just really, really motivated to sell it, and you drop the price to where your spread goes from 12 to 6. So essentially you're saying, $6,000 price drop. Well, instead of having to redo all those efforts of marketing that property, you can have, in our case, Daniel, our virtual assistant, just call the people that were already interested in the property and just say, hey, what'd you think? Well, guess what? We're really motivated to sell. We just lowered the price by $6,000. And I don't know, 40-50% of the time when he does that, he gets a contract on the property.
Mm-hmm. So, and we're happy to share these ideas. I actually, I feel like we have you mentioned in one of the previous episodes, let's go wholesale, and I wanted to make this comment then.
Let's make it.
Is that, go do that in your market. Absolutely.
Do it. Yeah.
It's one of the things I feel like we come up with a lot of ideas in our market, and I see a lot of people follow us, which I think is a great thing to be kind of one of the industry leaders here. So like watermarking pictures, I was doing that for anybody. The Let's Go Wholesale thing, we did that. Now we've got a lot of people that are mimicking that. Same thing, I've never heard anyone mention this, is that you need to log every buyer for that reason.
That's a great point, man.
I mean, you absolutely need to log it.
You gotta log it.
In addition to just knowing who's going in and out of your properties if something were to happen.
And that's another great point, too. If somebody goes in and vandalizes the property and you've only had 4 people that you've given the lockbox code, or one, it's going to be very simple to determine who did it. Now, they could have obviously given that code to somebody else, so, but if you've only given that person the code, one person or 2 people, it's going to be very easy for you to determine, who's responsible. It's a great point.
Yeah. So let's back to our team, though. So we've got now 2 VAs at this point. The next person that we hired was another local person. So we hired another person here locally to help with one of our partners, one of his kind of side projects. He really needed a little bit more.
And she's pivoted quite a few times.
She's doing great work.
He brought her on essentially to kind of be an assistant, as well as she was doing some joint venture deals with us. She was kind of bird dogging in a way, finding deals. We were giving her leads that she was working.
We've got an awesome team. I mean, everyone on our team is a hustler, and she's one.
Yeah,
of
but
them.
now she's a salaried employee, and she's helping out with closing coordination. She's helping out with our funding business, and we do a little bit of lending to cash buyers, essentially, and or students. But But yeah, she's doing really, really well.
Yeah, and then so recently we added another VA.
We did. We have a third VA now.
And let's keep the pace moving though. So that's kind of our team, the way our team's set up and just kind of has grown and evolved.
Right.
I mean, we've got a lot of people. It feels like a lot of people because, again, we've got a lot of JV partners that definitely kind of evolve.
So, Mike, back to the business structure, though. You have on your list here, to be an agent or not to be an agent.
Yeah, so quick conversation about that.
Let's just talk about that real quick.
So you're a wholesale real estate investor. You're building your business up. That's really the question is, I mean, do you want to be an agent or not?
Yeah. So I'm not an agent. Mike is. So there's obviously advantages to being an agent and not being an agent.
So here's where I came from. So from solopreneur perspective, you've got to be able to pull comps.
Jobbyist.
And what's that?
Jobbyist.
A jobbyist. An active jobbyist. So that's a jobby is one of my jokes about being a real estate investor is a jobby, guys. So solopreneur though, I needed to pull comps, and one of the ways that the only way you can pull comps is
the best way of pulling comps.
Well, you're right. The
There's
best way is to pull them from the MLS. So without being an agent, you can't do that unless you want to call an agent every time and say, hey, can you pull comps for this property? It becomes a bit of a headache. So I became an agent solely for the purpose
I should say,
of being able to pull comps.
Right.
As a wholesaler, that was my almost 100% intention behind becoming an agent. So I did. I mean, again, it made sense for me.
Yeah, and really, I recommend anybody that is gonna wanting to really be serious in this business, to become an agent, because not only are you going to get access to the MLS, but you're going to learn a lot about the technicalities and the specifics of real estate. Me personally, I've studied for the real estate agent test 3 different times.
Failed.
No, I went and
I'm teasing you.
No, I went and took the test twice. I just never followed up to actually become an agent. I don't know why. I have no idea why.
That's funny.
Call me lazy. But one of the things that you can do if you're like me that's not an agent is you can find an agent like Mike here, and you can actually become an assistant to that agent. And for a small fee, in every MLS zone, every MLS zone is going to be a little different, but maybe $100-$150 a year to become an assistant, and essentially you can get your own MLS.
Right. So if you've got a good friend who's an agent, you can ask them, "Hey, can I be your assistant?" So that they can gain access to essentially gain access to the MLS, and then obviously there's.
And it's a lot cheaper though too. I mean, what's it cost to be an agent?
Yeah, being an agent,
$1,500 a year, maybe.
Yeah, probably around that,
give or take. Which isn't terrible, but over 10 years, that's $15K.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to drop my license relatively soon because at this point, I mean, we have a brokerage.
Right.
We've got agents in house. I'll just be an assistant.
Right.
Or not.
Right.
I mean, I almost don't even need it at this point.
Right.
And coming soon, you're not going to need it either. We're developing a product that is going to launch in maybe when this is aired.
Yeah, soon. Couple weeks.
Let's drop the bomb.
Let's do it, man.
Let's say it. Easy ARV. So we're developing a product. It's going to allow you to pull comps straight from the MLS. It's going to be awesome. It's going to give you data just like you need as an investor. So again, I'm super excited about that. Look forward to here coming soon.
It's really, really awesome. So we have a product already that we have up in the St. Louis market right now. And essentially it scrapes the MLS, and it allows non-agents the ability to pull comps as if you were an agent.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's
absolutely awesome.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, you guys are going to love it once we get it launched.
Once we get it up and working on it hard though, guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Hopefully when this publishes, hopefully it's out.
I agree.
Yeah.
So to be an agent, not to be an agent.
All right, anyway,
something that you guys need to determine on your end. Obviously, there's pros and cons. One thing that I do want to mention before we move on from this topic is if you are an agent acting as an investor, just don't forget that you need to disclose. Let's say that. This is
very, very important, guys.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's say that this doesn't affect me, but I just know that this is a big rule. So let's say that you are an agent, but you're you're wearing the investor hat that day, and you're going out and looking at a property. Whenever you give that seller a contract, you need to make sure that you disclose to them that you are an agent. However, you are not there to represent them. You are acting as a buyer, and they're acting as a seller. And essentially, it's just one sentence that you need to add into your sales contract.
Yeah, but
it
it's
essentially says, I am an agent, however.
And it's for this reason. As an agent, you're held to a higher responsibility, fiduciary duty to your clients. So the thing is, if someone says, "Oh, I thought you were an agent," you told me, or you didn't tell me you were an agent or whatever. I thought you were helping me or representing me, and then they get upset about it. You could face some trouble,
some legal action.
Yeah, it's not good. So again. That is extremely important.
But it's very easy to avoid. Just disclose to them, and you can probably even do it verbally. Or
I'd get it in writing.
Probably get it in writing, right? But just say, "Hey, I am an agent. However, I am not representing you," and that's it. It's that simple.
Yeah, and we put it on all of our marketing and yada yada. It is very important.
Yeah, our marketing essentially says, we are an agent or we're agents, and we have a brokerage, but we're not reaching out to you today to want to list your home. Like we could care less about that. We are reaching out to you because we want to buy your home. So, all right, moving on.
Yeah, man.
What do we got here?
See, I told you this was going to be a great episode. I love talking about
lots of good stuff in here.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about risk management and insurance. So when it comes to the business, again, when you're first starting out, probably not quite as important. I know I carry just an umbrella policy when I started, and I think that's pretty much what we carry at this point too.
We have multiple insurance
different policies.
Yes, we have an insurance policy, like an umbrella on the business, but we also insure any property that we essentially purchase. We get a great rate because we're doing lots of volume, and essentially what we do is if we get a loan on the property, you have to have insurance. Period. They're not going to lend you without having insurance. But if we're just going to buy something for cash, even if we're only going to be holding it for a couple days, most of the time we will get insurance on it.
As a company, we decided that if we're going to put up $50,000 or so, we don't want to risk that.
Right.
We don't want.
If we buy something for 10 or 15 and we know we're going to have it sold in a week, we may not get insurance on it. But like as Mike said, if we're going to spend 40, 50, 60 grand, 200 grand, whatever, on a property, even if we only intend to hold it for a week, we still insure that property.
And one step further, even if we buy a $10,000 or $12,000 house or a $7,500 house, we're going to get insurance on it if there's going to be someone living in it.
That's
extremely important
for the liability purposes.
Exactly.
Right.
So we almost always insure properties that we're holding. I mean, there'd be very, very few exceptions to that.
So risk management is a very important principle to business structure. It's super important. And one thing that I think people, I guess you could look at this both ways, but I don't look at insurance as a downside or a negative or really even as an expense. I look at it more. It is an expense, of course, but I look at it like it's an asset, not a liability. So because in the event that catastrophe happens, you're covered. So yes, it is an expense. I worded that wrong, but it's not a liability.
Insurance is what helps you sleep at night.
It's an asset, right? And it's tax deductible,
right?
So every dollar, every penny that you spend on insurance is that much less money that you have to pay in taxes. Essentially, It reduces it in other ways.
Let's talk a little bit about risk management and how we deal with that here. One of the things, so we do a lot of joint ventures and co-wholesales, and one of the things that a lot of wholesalers or want to be wholesalers do is they'll go market other people's properties, and they don't have anything in writing. They don't have any equitable interest in the property, and it just bugs me to no end. If you're going to do something, you've got to get stuff in writing with people. Like you have to have a contract on a property to market it. You have to have an equitable interest in that property. So risk management.
Yeah, we had a joker last week trying to market a property to us that he didn't even have under contract.
Yeah, it's a waste of people's time too. Like it's I don't know. So risk management, make sure that you get stuff in writing with anyone you're working with, joint venture partners. When you're using contractors, spell out what they're doing for you. Make it very clear that they're an independent contractor. Back to taxes again. You've got to 1099 them so that you can. They'll pay their tax at the end of the year, so you're not responsible for that. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much all I've got.
No, that's great.
Dave, you got anything else?
No, I do. Just one more thing, just kind of sum all this up, guys. But putting together the proper business structure, essentially, to create an awesome wholesaling business, it's super important to kind of prepare for all this stuff in advance and set all this stuff up properly, because if you want to have a successful wholesaling business, you want it to be a business. You don't want it to necessarily be a job. And unless you have a team that's built out to, handle certain things, like we have people that handle incoming calls for sellers and people that handle incoming calls for buyers and somebody that's in charge of closing coordination and another person that's in charge of funding the deals. So by having a team, you essentially become a business owner versus you trying to wear 15 hats and do all these different jobs. You're essentially creating yourself a job. And I hear this so often, but a lot of people want to escape the 9-to-5 job to become an entrepreneur because they want freedom. But the downside or the side effect of that is they quit their 9-to-5 job, they become an entrepreneur because they want the freedom, but yet they have no freedom because they're working 80, 90 hours a week to make that entrepreneurial shift or jump a success. So, they're essentially trading something with an outcome that they're hoping for that they get none of.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So, if you're wanting to jump into, being a wholesaler or being an entrepreneur or owning any business, like I don't care if it's a tanning salon, make sure that you have your business structure set up properly so that way, you're not just creating yourself a job, you're creating yourself, business that you own and run.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. So, Mike, let's end it with a quotable quote.
Awesome. This one I think is kind of silly today. If you did something like a boss, you probably just paid someone else to do it.
I love it. It's about being a business owner, though.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thanks in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy and get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.